Welcome all to the Real Triad reviews. And right now we are just a dyad, but that's okay. We will have our trio soon. I am Mr. Snidbits, and to my left is Mr. Marvelite. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It has been an interesting week, and we are absolutely getting ready to review some Suicide Squad.
Yes.
Because that is all this week is about is Suicide Squad. So we are reviewing tonight. We've got Suicide Squad, the new James Gunn movie, as well as the 2016 Heirs film, and we also threw in a little fun bit, one of the DC animated movies, Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay, just to round it off. And for those of you that don't know, we will be starting What If next week because that will be dropping obviously this. I think it's Wednesday. Is that right, Mr.
It
Marvelade?
is Wednesday, the 11th. Yes.
Heck yeah. So that'll be fun. It'll be a blasty blast. We'll see how that goes.
Yep.
So I say we start off with the original, the 2016 one. That way we can let Black Girl Marvel jump in on the new one with us. How does that sound?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way to start it off.
Sweet. So, what were your initial thoughts back then when the 2016 Suicide Squad came out? I mean, there was right then we were in the height of DC coming up. We hadn't seen BVS yet, I don't believe.
I think, whoa, I just, my bat. Well, speaking of that movie, I think we had just gotten BVS. I think BVS was what, 2015. I think it was literally like the year before that. Uh, so you can hear me, right?
Oh yeah.
I feel like I lost audio. Okay.
No, no, you're good.
Um, okay, because I thought the bat almost took my computer out there.
It definitely shook your
Um,
camera. That's for sure. It looked
I
like an
know,
earthquake
right?
over there.
Yeah. So BVS for me, it didn't hit well, and I think everyone was hoping, and it was interesting though because I think a lot of people loved Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn before even seeing her as Harley Quinn.
Oh yeah.
I thought the footage that we got in the previews of her just in the outfit and with the bat and everything, the only way it could have been better is if you had like Tara Strong, because I mean she had the old Harley Quinn voice, but I liked how they did it. She was definitely a different character, or a different version of the character.
Right.
Um, and I wasn't so sure when I first saw Will Smith was going to be in it. I felt like Will Smith is one of those guys who either makes an action film or destroys it.
Hmm. That's an interesting
And
take.
well, I mean, we were just coming off of After Earth, and the third installment of Men in Black, and that happened a couple of years beforehand, and everything else. And it was kind of like I felt like we had reached our peak with Will Smith, and then he kind of fell off. So when I first watched the film, I was going in hopeful, and let's face it, I wasn't excited about anything that they were showing us with Jared Leto. The only great part about that film was Jared Leto really wasn't in it that much.
Now, what about the
Um,
extended? Because that's the one we watched, and it has a lot more Jared Leto.
okay, so the extended part, I appreciated those scenes with Jared Leto mainly because of the fleshing out of Harley Quinn,
Hmm.
not so much Jared Leto being in it.
Okay.
I feel like so when Nicholson talked to Ledger about Ledger doing Joker in The Dark Knight, Joker Nicholson warned Heath Ledger that it was a dark road. And Ledger locked himself up in a hotel room basically for weeks, and had this very creepy like notebook that there was a video I saw a couple years ago where it showed like his thought process of how he was building. And I would have loved to have just rented the room next to him when he was trying to discover his laugh. And I mean, Ledger did a fantastic job as the Joker in The Dark Knight. And then we got Leto, where we find out Leto was like sending, carcasses to people, and he was basically just really doing dark pranks and stuff. I felt like he wasn't mentally prepared for the film. Leto has a great range about really diving into a character, um, but I don't know if it's the director's fault or if it's Leto's fault. I just The Joker did not sell well with me.
Can I ask you a question?
Um,
Because this is actually
yeah.
this is something I have a very very unique take on the Joker in 2016 Heirs film or 2016
Mhm.
Heirs Suicide Squad. So here's the thing. Did you like him?
Not really, no.
Should you like the
Um,
Joker?
you're not supposed to, but I think the Joker has always been one of the more
What's
like
up, Taco?
interesting, exciting, like alluring villains of
Agreed. But think about it. So
yes.
there's two things about this villain that I like because one, we're not meant to like him. He's not a good guy, and he's never meant to be a good
Yeah,
guy.
but
So
I don't
I like the take on him being so evil that we're like, dude, step back. You're too evil. You're too gross. You're too icky. And he nails that. He nails being icky. Nobody disagrees with that. Leto
okay,
in
but that's
general,
not what I don't like about him.
I know, no, but this is just my take. That's all, and I want to hear
Right,
yours.
right.
But hear me out on this. So, we're talking
Okay.
about Suicide Squad 2016 because we're leading into the new Suicide Squad. It's a Suicide
Yes.
Squad trilogy tonight, if you will. Not that they're meant to be together. So my other take is
Right.
this: a lot of people don't like the look of Leto in the film, and they don't like the teeth and the tattoos and everything. And I have to say, well, wait a minute. One, there are how many different iterations before Leto's Joker that he has to compete against, or
Hmm.
that Ayers had to compete against to make this Joker, which is really
Hmm.
that's a tall order, right? No matter what,
Right.
I don't think we're going to like this Joker no matter what they did, honestly. So what it
Right.
boils down to is, did they try to pay the original Joker any homage? And they absolutely did. He's 100% a gangster in modern times. He was a gangster in the 30s when he fought against Batman, totally 30s and 40s, playing off the Al Capone concept and all that of the era, right? And prohibition. He even dressed the part, and he even did, even in the Batman animated series, he dressed the part of a gangster. So what did they do? They updated it to a modern gangster. I didn't have a problem with that. I actually thought that the idea of all of his teeth, Batman's been knocking them out for 20 years. He had to replace all of them. I don't know, things like that. I thought it was creative in those little subtle ways, but I'm also alone in this.
I don't think necessarily it was that bothered me. Like his look itself. Like I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like the grill and everything. It's a different interpretation. What I didn't like was the idea, like the whole thing with like Joker at a club with Harley Quinn, and there are like these engagements where they're making deals and stuff. Whenever I've read the Joker or I have watched something with the Joker always had an agenda of like mayhem and chaos and anarchy. And I just have always felt that organized crime, and maybe this is because I'm still jaded from the Dark Knight with Heath Ledger, where the Joker was destroying all, with all organized, crime, organized, society. His whole idea was watch it crash and burn and just enjoy the fireworks as it went.
Sure. No, and that's
Specifically the scene where Joker burns all the money, and he says, what's great about bullets and was it? It was like bullets and TNT or something. It's cheap, and he wasn't allured with money and stuff. But like even where it moves on to like Birds of Prey, you have this idea that Joker has like benefits for being the clown prince of crime. Like he's, people don't mess with him and give him whatever he wants, and
wouldn't you say that's
they're
true about Hamill's Joker though? I mean, that's the same embodiment. It's just, he doesn't do the Ledger Joker. The other Jokers, Ledger's Joker is amazing, and don't get me wrong, I think he did a phenomenal job, but
yeah,
he grounded that character in reality, which scares the crap out of everybody. What I look at when I see the Joker is I see 6 different iterations of the same character, and that's just how many faces that clown has. So the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, the Ledger Joker, the Leto Joker, they all
yeah,
embody the same character just on what day he's on. Like you could literally just,
right,
that's 6 different days of the Joker, really. Honestly, you could
right,
look at it that way. And there are days where he's just business because he's got to have the means to do what he's got to do to unravel the world. He can't just be broke like they show Ledger's Joker. Ledger's Joker works for a short period of time in that world, but remember, he might have burned that pile of money, but he didn't burn it all because he had to have enough money to hire people. He had to have enough money to get weapons and vehicles and all the things he did. So like there's still an element of the truck, the getting into, I don't know, there's too many things there that would require some amount of logistical money. It's just not talked about. So I understand.
yeah. But when you're a criminal, you just steal it all. I mean, come
Well, right,
on,
that's what I'm saying. So he still, but he had a budget and he still had overhead, is all I'm saying. So if he had overhead, the money he burned was more for style than it was for substance. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Eh, so no.
That's just me. That's just me. Ledger Joker broke even, but it doesn't mean he was broke. That's a very good way to put it. But
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you.
But even
They're
even
very
Nicholson, I mean,
distinctly
when
different.
Nicholson when Nicholson went into the museum, he was destroying the priceless art. You
Right.
know, he didn't care, and like the money that he had in that film was to throw away to get people to go for it, so he could basically kill them all.
Ooh, interesting.
Um,
You just made me think of something. Harley in herself was the priceless art that he destroyed in this film.
mhm.
Like if you were to embody that concept that he always is destroying
Oh yeah,
something priceless in each film, she was
well
a human, a regular human
yeah.
that was unraveled by him.
Well, if you think about it, like he was going to try to do that with Vicky Vale. Like
Right.
that was his desire in the 1989 Batman.
Oh yeah.
Is he was looking for that accomplice. So,
And it's weird
and if
because
you
we
keep
all
looking at
wished,
all
you know.
the characters in the background, they all had that porcelain doll looking
Right.
Joker-esque look to it.
Should we just do a whole show on the Joker? Because like we could, like we
Oh,
really could.
absolutely.
Like that's a
Especially
topic.
yeah. But if you do that, you have to get Joker NYC on here.
We would, and in fact, maybe we should do a special show with Joker NYC, who I miss, who I miss. We don't
Yeah.
see him much because he's always working on Sundays. Um,
Yep.
so back to the Air Suicide Squad. So I
Okay.
rewatched it again after watching the James Gunn one, and James Gunn is good at his craft, regardless of whether you like his movies or not. He's good at his job, and you see that I got my stream elements to start shouting you out. Anyway, I don't know if you're watching the stream.
Oh yeah. Hey, thank you for that.
Yeah, I finally programmed them in to just shout you guys out instead of having to continually do it. Anyway, looking at the structure of the film the first time around, I didn't have a problem with it because I had just come off of a couple of films from DC that I didn't like as well. Because I also don't like Batman versus Superman. I hate Man of Steel. I absolutely I loathe that film. I prefer
Yep.
Batman versus Superman over Man of Steel,
Yeah, I can see that.
and I prefer Batman versus Superman over Justice League too. The most
Yes.
of those three.
I personally liked Man of Steel. I liked the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman.
Agreed.
I thought that it was a little bit better, especially bringing. I think there was a little bit more explanation of a couple things. And it was kind of like the thing. Like there are things like if I were to compare the two, and I know we've done this in the past. Even sitting after a while, you think about it like the Snyder version of the Justice League. I do prefer over the original, even though I don't really prefer either one. Just because it kind of stays true to the Batman v Superman with Ultimate Edition, and we get a proper Steppenwolf, and we get a proper play on the Steppenwolf that we were presented in Batman v Superman, if you get what I mean.
Right.
It's just that the DCU has a problem where and it's the same thing. Like this has been going around on TikTok a lot. Warner Brothers just does not understand its properties at all.
I think it's
Like,
because there's a room full of executives talking about movie making, not property building, like not
yes,
not
and
not world building.
This is why this is exactly like what happened with Fox. If we would have gotten the version of Star Wars that Fox wanted to have, where they kept going at George Lucas for A New Hope, and they wanted to take this out or take that out, or people thought people wouldn't get this, or what's the purpose of having all this stuff going on.
What's with the thing that walks but doesn't talk? What's with that? Sorry, the giant
Yeah, exactly.
Chewbacca, like
Right. And it's and if we would have gotten that, it would have been the exact same thing as we got with Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers could not. I mean, like I was saying, the thing that with TikTok was like with Man of Steel, and this is just tells you how bad it is. When they were watching, the film, or they were watching a screening of the film, one of the executives came out and said, but if you destroy Spider-Man's ship, how is he going to go back to Krypton?
Superman.
Yes. Did I say Spider-Man?
You did. It's okay.
Oh, yeah. So if you destroy Superman's ship, then how is he going to get back to Krypton?
Right.
And Snyder's like, you watch the first 30 minutes of the film, the planet's been destroyed, but then my thought was like, this has been a long run. There were 10 seasons of Smallville talking about the destruction of Krypton.
Their bread and butter was made on Superman.
Superman Returns with Bryan Singer was specifically about him coming back to Earth after he realized that Krypton was destroyed.
Right. No, I know. It's Warner Brothers, for whatever reason, they saw what Marvel was doing and they were like, let's do our own thing. And I'm like, okay, I get that, but could you do your own thing right? And I'm not trying to get bag on anybody but the executives, because everybody who's put all this effort into these films have done an amazing job. I give credit to everybody, even Snyder, and I know that he went through hell and back to make that Snyder cut, and I respect what he did. And if it were me, I would have done the same thing. I would have come back and been like, "You guys really want me to make the version I thought? Okay, sweet," and I would have done it. I wouldn't have done as much slow mo, but that's just me. Now,
Right.
that being said, whoever's in charge of all of this doesn't understand they need to have a continuity person, and that's what Kevin Feige does for the MCU. He may not do much, like he does a lot. Don't get me wrong; I think he does tons. But I'm saying,
Right.
if only he does one thing, the continuity is the most important. And if they just have
Right.
one producer that could, and not Zack Snyder, no offense, somebody who's not directing, somebody who their job is to keep the continuity rather than direct, worry about the production. Like you can't have that many hats on one guy, and they put that many hats on Snyder, and it failed because of it. And it's not his fault. It's nobody could have done it. Nobody could have done it.
Right. And that was the thing with and I think that's what everyone has to realize. Um, the MCU is successful because of Marvel Studios, not because of Disney. It's
Right.
not because of what organization owns them. Because when the MCU started with Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America, and even Avengers in 2012, those were all done under the Paramount helm. Because Marvel Studios ran it, and Paramount did the distribution for it.
Right.
And then as we got up to Avengers in 2012, of course, at that point we have Disney buying the rights to it, and Disney said, "Okay, Feige, you've got this." And of course, Feige was executive producer on a number of Marvel-based films. We had him on X-Men, we had
Right.
him
He was
on
around
different things,
way before.
and he knew how fans were upset about the way certain things were done, and it was an opportunity for him. And then I think they were over like a dry cleaner or something, or I can't remember what it was, but they're in California. They're in this like rented office space, and they set out to do Iron Man, and they showed it could be done by this small group of individuals. And then Disney said, "Okay, we're buying you, we're throwing more money at you, but go ahead and do your thing." And they've done a little bit when it comes to meddling, hence why we lost James Gunn, and we have the Suicide Squad now, which, as much as I hate Disney for what they did, I don't blame them because we got what we got.
Well, and he's coming back for them. Like they rehired
Right.
him. So like
Exactly.
almost like no.
Yeah.
It's almost like we needed him to come over and dip his toe into the DC universe and go, "Look, guys, this is how you do it."
And Feige, it's come out because when James Gunn did his interview and stuff, he was talking about how Feige was utterly furious that they made him fire him.
No, because okay, there's
Yeah.
canceling for good reason, and then there's canceling just to be a canceled bully. And somebody says something 10 years ago and is willing to own up to it and never deleted the things they said and can grow as a human needs to be accepted. Um, there's a
But
huge
that was a crap
controversy.
show.
I know,
That was
but
okay.
there's even
So
a
when
huge
he did
controversy like with Matt Damon right now that I have my issues with. So, anyways,
well, here's the thing. Um, James Gunn addressed these tweets back when the first Guardians of the Galaxy came out, because he was explaining to them that this was more of like, he was doing more of a spoof and stuff. Trauma was encouraging them to be, really like,
cutting edge.
objectional and everything
Right.
else. It was an image that they were pushing.
Trauma is all
And
about
he
let's go against the
Yes,
culture. Right.
yes, and that was the thing. He addressed it back in 2014, and then Volume 2 came out. It was highly successful. He was even, he was a big proponent for continuity with the Guardians of the Galaxy and Infinity War. In fact, if you go back and watch the commentary for Infinity War, they are literally just praising James Gunn because he brought he brought the universe into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, and then this happens, and literally, like, it was because he was speaking out against Trump. And we know how, there are people who are Trump supporters, and I'm not saying everybody is, but you can almost imply that in some cases, where they just want to make an issue. And the guy who started this whole thing was the same one who was doing the whole Pizzagate thing and everything else. And I kid you not, on my other Twitter account with my art, I was on defending James Gunn. I was actually communicating with Dave Bautista. I was out there. We got with a group of fans, and we rented a billboard outside of Burbank that said "Save the Galaxy, rehire James Gunn." We had postcards, but I have a commemorative postcard somewhere
Uh oh.
of what we did to bring James Gunn back to Marvel. And I was listed as a pedophile on Twitter by the same guy who got him canceled.
Oh, of course. What a piece of garbage.
And And the only thing is I can say is I was on that list with Dave Bautista, so I've been
Good
associated with
company.
Dave Bautista
Yeah.
by infamy. So hey, why
Yeah,
not?
no, you're in good company. Real quick, we got a lot in the
Yeah,
chat going
yeah,
on
yeah,
here, and I
yeah.
definitely want to jump out and say hello, Lane. How we doing, Frost50? Good to see you here. Thank you for the host, Mr. Captain Salty Dog. I'm sorry, Captain Salty Dog, but not Mister. That's a different title. That's awesome that you're working from home, so you're going to get to be here a lot more. Lady Crossheart, Commander Crossheart, welcome. Thank you for stopping by and saying hello. Perfect timing. We were just taking a break to do some shout outs.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Miraculous Muncie, thank you as well for always being here. You are one of our ardent
Yes.
supporters, and we really appreciate it. And then Redbeard was here, and who else was here? Taco, of course, is still here,
Eagle Taco. Yep.
and we of course love everything about the Taco, because he gives us some great stories. Now, all that being said, chat,
Yes.
don't hesitate to jump in. We can try to include you guys as much as you want. Sometimes we aren't sure whether you're talking to each other generally, so if you have something directed towards us, just it may that might make it a little easier. I don't know. I'm just suggesting. Because we can get going. As you can see, me and Marvelite can talk
Yeah,
a lot.
yeah. I just got on a bandwagon. I'm so sorry about that.
No, you're good.
You give me on that soapbox because that's a touchy point for me.
No, yeah.
That whole thing with James Gunn like sets me off.
Well,
So
so let's talk about that for a minute. James Gunn has to be one of the most, one of the strangest directors in all of cinema history because of the fact that he came from a joke. Not that they're a joke, but he came from um, a spoof troupe, if you will, and that's Trauma. And they were basically like, let's take horror and turn it on its head and make it ridiculous.
yep,
And who cares about budget? Who cares about acting? Who cares about all of it? Let's just make movies. And if you have
yep,
no Trauma at all, they're ridiculous. They're fun. One of my favorite Trauma movies is called Tromeo and Juliet, and it's absolutely
yep,
awful, and it's a really bad take. And I mean awful in the very respectful way because that's almost what they want you to say. If you said it's awful, they're going to
exactly.
go, yeah, they're like Razzies, but for movies. Anyway,
It's like it's so bad you've got to watch it.
right. And so James Gunn got his start as one of the people in the troupe and then eventually became a director and then eventually broke out of that and did his own stuff and eventually
Yep.
made the movie Super. And if you haven't seen the movie
Yes.
Super and you want to talk about people that are worried about this Suicide Squad being deranged, go watch Super and talk to me about a deranged James Gunn. That is
Yeah.
an effed up movie. I've seen it
Yeah.
once. I don't know if I can bring myself to watch it again. And we appreciate that, Muncie. We appreciate that. Anyway, so um, James Gunn does not deserve to be canceled for being a part of something that was wildly popular in the '90s with a counterculture. Like you
Right.
brought the counterculture guy in and then expected his tweets to be perfect. Like
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
going to an R-rated movie and expecting there not to be any violence or sexuality. Like it doesn't makes no sense to me.
It's like the whole idea of shock and awe. Like I just saw something recently where one of the executive producers of Marvel Studios is coming out to say that she didn't feel comfortable with the scene in Iron Man 2 where Tony Stark objectifies Scarlett Johansson's character, Natasha Romanoff, when he looks at Pepper and says, "I want one." And it's like she just felt that that didn't fit into the whole, and I'm like, that absolutely fit into the film. We were trying to you're trying to get across that even though Tony was a hero at the point of where he stopped Jeff Bridges' character in Iron Man 2, he's still struggling with his own inner demons, and one of them was being
A
he was a
misogynist,
chauvinist.
right?
Yes, he's a misogynist.
Right.
Like that's exactly on point. And just the fact that you didn't like it because it objectifies women back then, that was the point of it.
Right.
It's like if you at some point under that same logic, when we were just talking about Tarantino movies before we got on stream, it would be like saying that Leonardo DiCaprio's character is on high water because he played a slave owner in Django Unchained. And it's like, well, that's offensive. That was the whole point of the film. Like it was meant to be offensive, and it was meant for you not to like it. And I when he said I want one, I'm like, oh yeah, that's funny because that's Tony Stark's character and stuff, but it doesn't mean I accept it. It's just that's what explained him. Okay, I'm good. I'm done. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good, dude. So, like, okay, there's a point. Like, okay, so the idea that women have been used in the MCU to objectify women is a good point, and it needs to be brought up. And it's something that
Yes.
if you watch even the old Suicide Squad versus the new one, or even the Birds of Prey versus the old Suicide Squad, there's this thing called the male gaze that people don't want to talk about. But
Yep.
men view women differently than women view women, or that even non-binary people view women.
Yep.
And it took me a while to see it, but I see it now. And as much as I see it,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you have to be shamed by it. Like let's be clear that there's nothing wrong with that. It's the point behind it that's the most important thing.
Right.
Sexuality
If
is
you're
still a
doing it
part of our
because you're
being.
appeasing
Like,
people for it,
right.
it's okay. So we're talking about the air cut of Suicide Squad. The whole scene where Harley Quinn is getting dressed in front of them, although we don't see anything, it's still a PG-13 film. There's that insinuation that she's naked in front of these men, and they're all staring at him, or staring at her, and it's like, okay, was that necessary? It probably was not necessary. But the thing that you have to realize is it wasn't, as much as you may not have thought it was a big deal at that point, that she was just like flamboyant, and she is expedition. She's an I forget how you would say it, but
Exposition.
she's exhibitionist. There we go. She's an exhibitionist, and that's part of like the lifestyle with her and Mr. J. You have this other take where in the James Gunn the Suicide Squad, she's not sexually objectified. I mean,
She's sexual.
yes, she's sexual in that scene, the whole scene with the president, but um she's not, that's not all she's about. And you know it's interesting because it's like I find you can do it without it being inappropriate because
Right.
you're trying to get that message across. But yeah, so
Oh,
yeah.
hydration time.
Yes, I'm running out of drink.
Thank you, Darkslayer. And Darkslayer comes over from TikTok. Thank you for coming on over. We like to see the
Yeah.
crossover between platforms. We already communicate through like 10 different platforms between each other, so we're hoping that becomes a norm, which is very cool. Now, something that's an unintended consequence of, and we're going to get back to Suicide Squad here. This is a perfect segue.
Yes.
One of the great unintended consequences was that because they had a all-female cast and a female lead on the Birds of Prey film, with that female gaze, it almost adds to the story because Harley was dressing the way she was and doing what she did to appease this misogynistic Mr. J. And so her dressing that way and even putting on Daddy's Little Monster was her still dreaming. And even if you look at the sequences in the film, she's constantly thinking back to the way he was very abusive to her, but still longing for him. And it's almost like her slowly disconnecting herself. So when we see her in Birds of Prey, she's completely let that go. She cuts her hair off. She lets go of that completely slick, like perfect girl look that she's been given. And don't get me wrong,
And even her outfit in the back says "Die Clown," so
right.
it's like it's perfect.
I love the look that she had in the 2016. I'm not going to say I didn't. There's so many people that did, both male, female, and non-binary people did, like across the board. And I even have a shirt of it. But do I now know that maybe that's just one perspective? Like that's just one.
It was a symptom. It was a symptom of her relationship, and I think that was very interesting because when you get to Birds of Prey, it's a little bit different from her.
Right.
And she, I mean, because at some point, she gives the shirt over to somebody else, I think, at that point, and she gives the bat over. And
no,
so
yeah, because she
like,
does say no, not that one. She still has a little sentiment to it.
Yeah.
She grabs that and gives her the bulletproof old school Harley corset or corsair. Right. So anyway, so the 2016 Airs Suicide Squad has its problems, but I still think there's a lot of fun to that film. I love Deadshot in that film. I love the way it breaks down. I love his opening sequence when they give him the guns. It's almost like it's a whole bunch of great little sequences that are great, but then there's not a backbone. It has nothing holding it up, so it falls apart. And somebody pointed out something that I didn't like hearing, but it made perfect sense. The squad that they have going up against Enchantress is an unbelievable squad against such a huge supervillain. They wouldn't win, no matter what. They're all human, except Diablo. Diablo's the only non-human, and we saw what happened to him. And if you go into the new Suicide Squad movie, their big villain, even though it's big, is actually a much more like reasonable and manageable character to take out. And it's very interesting because I didn't think about it versus like magic and what you can do with magic versus just being a big creature. The spectacle's there, but as far as the believability, it falls apart.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing. Like, also, you get into this trope with these movies where it's kind of like you have these goop monsters that they're faceless beings that you're fighting, and you almost run that risk in the Suicide Squad where you've got this mob of individuals. But I feel like that was even more honest to the situation with Starro than you know um, Huntress was, or I'm sorry,
Enchantress.
Enchantress. Yeah, Enchantress was with all those goop monsters, basically just being people that were converted into goop. So
See, I didn't mind that, and I know why they did it, because didn't that get a PG-13 rating?
yes,
And that's
but it
why.
also but it also kind of made the killing, and it really didn't mean much at all. It was kind of like
It
fighting to
didn't.
go. Yeah,
You're right. It's like the San Andreas. So this is the big problem with this faceless death that happens in films. So like in San Andreas or other disaster films, millions of people die, but we never address it. And in this, they address the people dying one time by talking about the guy's $3,000 watch. But as a dude with $3,000 watch, I don't care that he died. You know what I mean? Like they didn't say
yeah,
like mom and kid with bread in their hands. If they had said that, dude, I'd have been
yeah.
like, these people are real. But they didn't give us that. They did not attach that to the reality of
Nope,
humans for us, and that made
not
it.
at all.
I like that they made it so that he could get as violent what they went with them without having to worry about the critic, or not the critics, but the censors, which is
Right.
good. And they even did that in the new Suicide Squad. I have a theory about that, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. But
Well,
they had
also,
to
I
bring it
felt
back
like
a notch.
yeah, and I think the thing was with the 2016 Suicide Squad, like honestly, the term suicide didn't really mean much in this story. Like you had the one guy, I even forget his name now off the top of my head, the guy who can scale anything. He dies, and then you have
That was the most
um
worthless character in all of cinema history,
yeah,
and
and
it
then you
had
have
to be the.
Diablo
It
dying at
had to
the
be.
end.
Why did it have to be the indigenous guy? Why did it have
Right,
to be the
right.
indigenous guy?
But like
Sorry.
I felt like there was really no stakes. The only thing that you had was Rick Flag, was trying not to kill Enchantress because he was in love.
Oh,
Um,
and the whole like mysterious who's the person they were saving, like that fell apart pretty quick too. And you're like,
yeah,
she could have got there are like 80 ways she could have gotten off that building without that giant prince demon guy getting her. But no, instead they shoot off 1,000 flares and fly as low to the ground as possible. That is totally not fly up, dude. Just fly up. You're in a helicopter.
yeah,
And yet they put in this plot point, and it starts to just from that moment the movie unravels. Up
yep,
until that point, when they get to the roof and Harley jumps to the Joker, I can handle the movie to that point, and then after that, I start to go, "Oh, this is just too much to handle."
yeah. I feel like the only time that I really appreciated in that film was the bar scene where they finally were, sitting down and talking, and where you had Rick Flag kind of treat them like human beings the whole time in the film. Like they're scum.
Right.
He's treating them like scum. They're just scum. And then when he finally like gives that connection, and I think that was the whole point. Like for me, Rick Flag had to be the character that galvanized them, and he was that friend to them. And I think that's what I also really liked about the Suicide Squad, because there was no hesitation to say he was my friend too. It was definitely one of those things where, and he didn't seem threatened by them. He wasn't angry at them. He was just kind of like, this is what we do. There's that bar scene in the new film where him and Bloodsport are really kind of connecting, and you see a different character. And I think I like, and the thing is, you don't have to watch the 2016 Suicide Squad to appreciate the new one.
No.
But I do say that storyline in itself of Rick Flag coming to terms with his team meant more to me probably than the whole storyline of the film with Enchantress. Um, so that's just me.
No, and you don't have you have a fair point. The whole idea that the film's bad guy was made by the film's protagonists, like
Yeah,
there is no real bad guy other than Waller, and she's not really the antagonist. And then people are like, no, Joker should have been the bad guy. But I'm like, how the hell would that have worked? Like, I don't see why Harley would have turned against him. There would have been no reason. He would have had to do some pretty effed up stuff to her to have her turn on him in a film so easily. But
and let's just say this
I don't
too:
know.
it's not a proper Suicide Squad film unless you really hate Amanda Waller.
Right.
Like you
Yeah, you have to
have to
hate
hate
her.
her. And honestly, Viola Davis was good in a Suicide Squad, but I didn't hate her.
I
I
know.
hated her in the Suicide
I
Squad.
still think they picked the right person. I think she's an
Oh
amazing
yeah,
actress,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
she was the right choice for Waller. She has the demeanor, and she pulls off the like the in the beginning when she's eating the steak and talking about
Yeah,
all the details about the squad. That's one of my favorite scenes in the whole film.
right.
Um, and I think they changed the music in the movie. When I watched the HBO version, I think they changed the Will Smith scene with the music, but that's just me.
I have to
I
go
don't
back and watch it. I'll see.
know. I thought we were going to get La La by now, and we have not. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but hopefully she's okay. That's my first concern is whether or not she's okay.
Right.
Um, if she's okay, but things are just tying her up, then that's okay. We can handle this. I did reach out to see if we could get a third person just in case. It sounds like we might be able to, weirdly. Um, so hold on. We might have to take a 2 minute break, kill the live, and come back if you guys are willing to hang out on the page while we do that. But let me get the response from the person because I would love to have a third person for this discussion of this new movie because it's so good and we're talking about every detail.
Absolutely.
And if you haven't seen the new Suicide Squad movie, which since it came out on HBO, it's going to be kind of hard for people to be like, "Well, I didn't watch it in the last 5 days." Yeah, to definitely, we're gonna spoil it. We're gonna spoil the living crap out of it.
Oh
Because
yeah.
we're going to get into some extreme detail. But be aware, we do have this wonderful tool right here. So if you do see this pop up, we might just run this for the whole segment. We've done that before just to make sure, but it gives you an opportunity to mute us so that you don't have anything. And of course, we don't run captions. So, and I apologize to those who are um, hearing impaired. I wish we could run captions, but it's live, so it's tricky. So yeah, that'll be the way for those that are new. If you don't want to have it spoiled for you. In the meantime, while we wait to see if we get this other person to join us, we could move into the other Suicide Squad movie
Yes.
after we do a quick
Okay.
rating on this one.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I was going to say. And also advice because I think we haven't really mentioned this. We're talking about the was it the extended cut
Right,
of. So if you're like if we're talking about if we talk about something and you're like, well, what the heck are you talking about? It's probably because we're watching that version of the film.
right.
If you watched it in 3D or you watched it in the theaters, it's not the same version. Specifically, the difference between the extended edition and the theatrical edition is there are more scenes developing the Harley Quinn Joker storyline, which I will say those were the things I appreciated a little bit more. It was mainly the scene where she's chasing him down in the motorcycle. That scene made it worthwhile for me because it showed her winning him over, and I liked that. I liked that a lot.
Well, that was
And
the
that
thing.
exchange, yeah,
That's how it goes. Like
like he's
she
like,
chases him down.
if I didn't think you were crazy, I'd think you were insane. And like that dialogue between the two of them was fantastic. I didn't need the dream scene with her imagining, a non-tattooed Joker with a family that was worthless. But honestly, it does give you a mindset that Harley really thought she could rehabilitate Joker, and she had hopes for normalcy, which is weird though because if you go back into her comic book story, like her background, she really didn't have that. I mean, go back to Bernie Bang. So, but regardless,
Um, Again, I'm weird. I'm still one of those people that I don't love Letters Joker. I didn't um I just don't loathe him the way other people do. I guess I'm kind of indifferent, but I see what they were trying to do, and I think it was a clever and unique take, and it adds to the lexicon. It adds to the overall spread of the Jokers we have now, and more to compare it to. So, um,
I did.
if anything, it set up Joaquin's Joker to not be compared to Ledger's.
Yes,
If anything,
yes.
so
If anything, it was kind of like, and that's the thing, like Leto, and I think someone said in the chat earlier, I did actually like the Leto engagement in the end of BVC, or I'm sorry, in the Justice League Snyder cut. I liked that dialogue between him and Batman better than I liked the Leto Joker in and the Suicide Squad. I just felt like it was a little bit over the top. And again, like I liked his insanity. I liked him, laid out in the menagerie of knives and weapons and stuff, like that level of insanity. I didn't even mind the tattooed smiling face that he put over his face. Like there are things that I did not mind. It just didn't sit well. I just didn't get certain vibes from the Joker, from that. Um, so that's my thing. Mind you, we're gonna get another iteration of Batman, and we'll most definitely get more iterations of Joker. We may not we may not think he's the worst, but it is what it is. So
So it sounds like Lala's on her way. Um,
okay,
and if she can't make it, all the movie things is in the batter's box, or not in the batter's box. What do they call that thing? I haven't played
the
baseball in
hitter,
years. What is that silly box
the
called?
dugout,
No, it's
the
between the
dugout,
dugout and the batter's box. On deck.
where they? Oh, okay,
We got him on deck. Apparently, he's watching. Hello.
yeah, he's in there.
Anyway, so
Oh,
okay, we will be back. Hang out. We will be back. Hang out.